Welcome to Empath Inspiration, where you are honored for your ability to feel so much, so deeply. Each week, you will learn practical information, tools, and insights that empower empaths to live healthy, productive lives. Here's your host, author, intuitive, natural health and holistic nutrition consultant, and the developer of the Foundation's Healing System, a revolutionary self-healing method designed specifically for empaths, Dr. Janice Carlin.
Welcome to episode 12 of Empath Inspiration. I have a very special guest on the show today I'm very excited about, and we'll be talking about freeing yourself through forgiveness. Now, her name is Pamella Horton, and she's a modern-day spiritual explorer with decades of personal and professional experience, including a bachelor's degree in social work and a master's degree in organizational development. Now, the core of Pamella's teachings is that you can lead a spiritual and magical life starting right now from where you are. She invites you to learn how to shape the energy around you so that your life can change in an instant if you allow it to. And I totally resonate with that. So welcome, Pamella.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Janice. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to share time and energy with you and anyone who's listening.
That's going to be wonderful to hear what you have to say today. For everyone, before we get into, Pamella and I get into our discussion about forgiveness, I'm guided to share an excerpt about forgiveness from my book, The Foundation System. Forgiveness is so important that it's one of the steps of the energy healing process that's included in the Foundation's healing system. And this will be channeled information you'll be hearing, so the language is pretty formal sounding. In the system, forgiveness encompasses step number 5 of the energy healing process. It's just that powerfully important to get a real handle on what forgiveness is and how you can use it in your life. And I'll be sharing more of the Foundation's healing spiritual remembrances in upcoming episodes. But today, here is remembrance number 5, forgiveness. Forgiveness is essential for healing. For as long as you are holding on to unforgiveness towards yourself or anyone else for anything at all, you are creating dissonance within yourself. As you embody forgiveness, then nothing that is unforgiveness can resonate to you. This means that you are forgiving of everyone and everything. And this is not to be confused with saying that everything that someone else has done is all right or okay. It is to say that you deny them the power of hurting you by holding on to resentment towards them in any way. Thus you forgive and you let go. When you let go and forgive, you are actually helping not only yourself, but those who are on the other end of your forgiveness as well. You are freeing them and allowing them to find their way upon their own paths. And this works both ways in that when someone else is holding on to unforgiveness towards you, they themselves can be affected negatively. So in order to break those negative connections, forgiveness must be looked at from both sides. Be willing to forgive and also break the negative connections from anyone unwilling to forgive you. In being willing to forgive, this includes everyone, everything, yourself, God, spirit, light, whatever you want to give the name of that to. Remember that all is one. Forgiveness is a high vibrational state, and experiencing the opposite of it can make you feel miserable. Your heart and your energy systems were not designed to hold on to unforgiveness and resentment toward anyone or anything. So in order to function in your highest state of vibrancy, letting go of resentment and embracing forgiveness is essential. Remember also that there's a higher purpose to everything that you experience. There are contracts that have been made on a soul level in order for you to experience certain things. You may not remember about all of these contracts. So when something occurs with another person that seems unthinkable or terrible, you benefit from viewing it from a much broader soul level perspective. You are experiencing exactly what you have planned to experience. Letting go of resentment allows your soul to synthesize and complete the experience more quickly and easily than continuing to hold on to the painful aspects of it. You experienced it, and you have the power to release the pain, transmute it, and thus benefit from it. Enacting your power to forgive will free you from the pain. And that's the end of the excerpt from the book. So, Pamella, how would you like to start?
Well, I think my job is done here. That was so beautifully written and very true and very powerful. And anyone who is willing to allow themselves to go within, because the only way out of pain, out of trauma, out of unforgiveness is the only way through that is by going in. You have to go in to finish that up. And what you've encompassed in your work, in your writing just now is beautifully packaged and very well said. So thank you for the beautiful introduction and the jumping off point for our conversation today. It was wonderful.
Oh, great. I'm glad that you think so.
Yeah,
but,
it was.
Well, yeah, tell me where you want to start.
It's true. So I actually want to offer up a quote from one of my favorite authors and people who I've never had the privilege of meeting, which was Mark Twain. Two of my all-time favorite quotes come from him, and the first one is, "Common sense is very uncommon." And the second favorite quote has to do with, my second favorite quote from him, it has to do with forgiveness. And I invite everyone who's listening, not only to this quote, but to mine and Janice's conversation, not just with your physical ear and physical hearing, but with your spiritual hearing and your spiritual ears and every cell that you are. And just really hone in on today's message, because it's going to help you move forward and be able to receive what it is that you've been wanting all along, whether that's more love, whether that's a romantic partner, whether that's a job, you name it. So here's Mark Twain's quote: "Forgiveness is the fragrance that violets shed on the heel that has crushed it."
Oh, man. That is
right.
good.
So
yeah.
And just picture that, a gentle, tiny little violet flower being crushed by a human heel, and yet there's still fragrance that comes from that. So in other words, another analogy could be the phoenix, right? You know, you burn in ashes, you burn in pain, you're hurting in pain, and to rise up out of those ashes requires forgiveness. And how do we do that? How do we forgive ourselves? How do we forgive others? And I always felt that it really begins with us. I really feel like it's internal work first before we can have our outer world mirror what's going on inside. And actually our outer world is always mirroring what's going on in ourselves. So if we are experiencing lack, uncertainty, pain, confusion, you might be feeling like you're doing everything right. And you might feel like you're listening to guidance and you're going to seminars and you're reading books and you're doing all of the steps that all of the specialists have offered up to you to do, and things still aren't moving forward the direction that you are meant to move forward in. And not only does that mean, in my humble opinion and from experience, that there still needs to be work done on yourself internally through forgiveness and with forgiveness and of forgiveness, but it also means that it may not be the right time for you to move forward. And that time comes when you completely heal. And everything happens, as you mentioned in your writings, Janice, for a reason. It's for a higher purpose. It's training. It's boot camp. It's a PhD in everything that you've asked for. So I think the question is, how do we forgive? You know, there are stories where women who have lost their children to a gunshot or to some sort of a horrific traumatic murder, and yet they go to the prison with which their child's murderer is in, and they go and befriend them, and they tell them that they have a support system when they get out of prison, and they're very forgiving and very humbling, and they are able to live in peace because they made that connection with the murderer of their child. That's a very extreme example, but that's a perfect example of how you do the work inside and then let it come outside so that you can live in peace.
I'm reminded of something like that is an amazing example. It's not something we all experience, but as empaths, and tell me how you feel about this too, Pamela, and what you want to add, but as empaths, you know, energy, we feel the energy, and it's coming at us from different ways all the time. And sometimes it's coming at us very directly, you know, not just as an empath, it comes at anybody, where people just kind of vent on you, or kind of it could attack you emotionally or verbally. They don't really mean to do it to you, but they're overwhelmed in their life and it comes out at you, you know. And because I had this happen really recently, and I was on the phone with someone who didn't know well, I was on the phone and literally just dumping all over me, and it was very rough. And I did some of the things that I tell you all to do all the time, and I was asking for spiritual assistance, help me, you know, get this away from me, keep this away from me, and please, I don't want to cry, you know, get this away so I don't cry, and so I'm not hurt. So anyway, I was deflecting it off of myself and was able to stay grounded and actually talk her down to the point where she realized what she'd done and was so apologetic and just apologizing, you know, I'm going, that's enough apologizing, but okay, glad you have awareness of it now. And then she said, do you forgive me? And I said, of course I do. And she said, well, you know, some people wouldn't forgive for that. And I said, and I just kind of laughed because it was so, I've worked with this for so long, and I just said, if I didn't forgive you, it would have hurt me. And of course it would have hurt her, but you know, I was talking about myself, and I said, it would have hurt me. So why would I not have forgiven you? And she was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm glad that you have that awareness, but that's for all of us. I mean, I instantly had to let go of any kind of resentment toward her. Now, did I like what happened? No. Did I tell my husband about it? You know, somebody did this thing and I didn't like it, but I'm okay. You know, and I said, but I'm okay. And I let it go and I'm fine. And I just kept kind of, if I would think of her, I would just clear it away. You know, I'd clear it away. And, but it was that instantaneous willingness to forgive and to not hold on for 1 second to the resentment, because it does hurt. And as an empath, you can feel it. If you'll notice, if you're like, even if you're kind of reliving the experience, like when I told my husband and he would say, oh, this happened, you can feel the tension in yourself. You can feel it in your chest tighten up. You can feel it just constricting you. Constricting is the word. And then, you know, we said, we're talking about freeing yourself. You are not free if your energy is constricted. You cannot, the other energy kind of will not flow through you and keep you clear the way you need to be so you can be grounded and feel good. It will get stuck in you more. Just this one little instance of not forgiving someone can block up your whole energy system, depending, of course, how, you know, with the degree of sensitivity you have. But for me, super ultra sensitive, it will block the whole thing. And I would have been sick by the next day. I'll tell you right now, if I had held on to it, but I didn't. So I want to encourage, you know, as I always do, all of you are listening, you've got to let go, whether it's energy that just comes into your space and you're not aware of it, but it feels bad, or whether it's energy like this example, it's coming straight at you, it's shooting right into you, you know, and you've still got to let it go. So what do you think, Pamela?
You're right that there's another, what you just shared reminded me of another quote that Buddha, and I don't know the entire correct way of saying it, but it's in essence, anger, resentment is fear, but when you hold on to it like a hot coal, the only person that gets burnt is the person that's holding the hot coal, holding the resentment, holding the energy of that. And it's when you are experiencing taking on other people's energy or holding on to offense when someone has offended you, whether that's through an argument, through verbal, you know, language, body language, if you feel offended or if you are hurt by your spouse or through years of whatever resentment that's built up, if you're holding on to that, it's going to manifest itself physically. Just as you said, you'd be sick the next day. And actually, those are blessings when we start to feel that the headaches or the heartburns or the upset stomachs, or whatever the case may be, twitches, eye twitches. If you're starting to experience physical manifestations of your anger, of your resentment, of your fear, that's actually a good thing, because if you allow yourself to recognize, okay, something's not right, something's not in alignment, something is manifesting itself physically, what is it? And begin to ask yourself what it is. And then you can be able to become aware of exactly what you haven't forgiven, what you are angry about. And one of the ways to, I don't want to utilize the word combat, but to counter it, to counter the resentment, to counter the anger, to counter the frustration, is to look at the person who you think is the source of it. So if it's your adolescent daughter or son who is talking back or sassing back, or just simply not listening to what you're doing or what you would like them to do, or whether it's a spouse that yet again is talking to you a certain way that you really just don't appreciate, what can be done in that respect is look at the individual and look at them through eyes of absolute, pure, unfiltered compassion. Where is it that they're coming from? What is their point of view? If you begin to hear yourself make statements about them, and you can understand the point of view that they're coming from, and the statement that I just made about, if you can hear the statements that you're making of them, are they judgmental statements? Are they here we go again statements? These patterns are holding you in that resentment, anger, fear mode. And instead you can counter it with, how do I know this is true? How do I know that they are doing this because they mean it towards me? How do I know that they actually mean it and are aware that they are doing it? Where is it that they're coming from? And begin to understand that they've been possibly talked to their whole life that way, your spouse or a colleague or a coworker. And understand that it's a pattern. It's not the real them, because if you understand the real you is connected to the real you of everyone else, we are all one, literally, energetically speaking. And anything that is attacking somebody else is going to reverberate back out to you if you or they have not taken care of that initial underlying thing, no matter what that is, an argument, verbal abuse, not being taken seriously, taken for granted, in whatever situation or setting you're in.
That is so helpful. And the reason is because I really hope that we're driving home. I really hope we're doing it justice to really bring forth the out of words, but the vibration of the power of forgiveness. It's not just, I forgive you. I mean,
Janice, I'm going to share.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm going to actually share a personal experience. Two of them. One is really personal. I was married once before. I had my first marriage, and gratefully, and this is going to sound strange to a lot of people, gratefully, my first marriage was actually very, very abusive, mentally and physically. And even through, and I'll even go backwards. The day of my wedding, my mother looked at me and said, "Are you sure you want to go through with this?" And my words, I don't even know where they came from at that point. I was very spiritual. I did communicate with spirit, but it wasn't as deep as it is my practice now. My faith was not as deep as it is now. And at that day, my wedding day, my mother asked that question of me, and I said to her, "Let it take its course. This needs to take its course." I had no idea what I meant at the time. I really didn't. And it was so as matter of fact and so clear when I said the words out loud to my mother. I loved my first husband. I was in love with him, of course. I wanted to have a relationship with him. I wanted our relationship to work, but I understand now why it didn't. And I understand the words today, let it take its course, because without the experience of that first marriage, of being beaten down, year after year, month after month, physically, emotionally, spiritually, I would never have come to be in the place that I am today to be able to help others walk through their own fires, to have liberation and freedom. It was one of the roles that I needed to play. And today I can comfortably and confidently and appreciatively say to everybody that I absolutely have unconditional forgiveness and love for my ex-husband. Because if it wasn't for that experience, if it wasn't for understanding where he came from and having compassion for where he came from growing up in his childhood, understanding and having compassion from where he came from allowed me to forgive, allowed me to understand that it wasn't him attacking me, it was him ultimately attacking himself. And I was just the byproduct of that attack. That my victimhood was the product of him attacking himself. Yeah. And I began to see him on his deathbed. I would actually visualize, not because I wanted him to die, but because I needed to get to a place in my own being, my own physical and energetic being. I needed to come to a place of complete compassion and forgiveness. And one of the techniques that Buddhism actually offers up is if you can imagine the other person being in the coffin or in the urn if you cremate the body. And I'll tell you what, there's nothing more sobering than that exercise. And that is something that I practiced and did. And again, not wishing for his death, of course, never, ever, ever, but it allowed me to move on. It allowed me to heal. It allowed me to elevate and vibrate higher so that I can attract exactly what it was that I needed and desired in my life. And consequently, we vibrated out of each other's lives. And we separated and moved on, and I was able to grow from that. And again, extreme example, but powerful. And then the second story I wanted to share with everybody is there was a woman years ago when I was in corporate America who she and I just butted heads consistently. And there was jealousy and resentment and fear of taking each other's positions. And it was just gross and ugly. And I began to utilize the same techniques by understanding, asking questions, understanding where she was coming from, what her point of view was, understanding and knowing that it wasn't a full-on attack on me, but it was an attack on her. And begin to forgive her and understand. And 2 weeks when I began those techniques, she actually moved to a different company. She left our company, and within 2 weeks' time, I was free of her. And when I began to do those techniques with my ex-husband, I was free of him within 2 weeks. It was so powerful and so effective.
Thank you for sharing those. It really is. And what I love what you're doing also is you're giving everybody a way to really consciously conceptualize all of this. And that is so important. We have to have the conscious awareness of what we're doing and what's happening. And I want to connect it to something I always talk about in quantum science called entanglement. When you're holding on to anything, you're holding it. So such as the resentment and the anger and the unforgiveness, and you're holding it about someone in connection to someone, you are directly connecting to that person. And you're not connecting in a good way, like a high vibrational loving way. You're not connecting in a spiritual way because your soul, this unforgiveness stuff is not in your soul, okay? You're connecting in a lower vibrational experience, okay? So you're connecting through fear. And now anything that's connected to them that's fear, you just opened a channel. It's just flowing between you, and it's building and it's affecting you, and however it's affecting you, this is not good. We do not want to live this way. It's not conducive to healing. It's not conducive to being able to thrive here, and it's being super sensitive. It's worse for super sensitive people and for empaths because you could feel all those vibrations that are passing between you. You are entangling yourself when you do not purposely, on purpose, do not let go. And so I just can't drive it home hard enough how important it is. You're literally, if you want to visualize something, we're talking about freeing yourself, okay? Being free from all of that low vibrational, toxic, harmful energy, fear-based energy. You've got to literally cut those ties you've connected to them. And when you cut that, it involves those pieces that Pamela is saying that consciously in your mind you are doing, and compassion, seeing for what it really is. Being an empath gives you the ability to, you can feel the person. All you have to do is connect in that mental level thinking of being aware of what you're feeling. You're feeling something from them, just like Pamela said, that's not resolved inside of them. That's not feeling good inside of them. That's what you're feeling. Okay, so to take care of yourself, you cannot stay connected to them in that way, in that low vibrational way. You can't do it and be okay. So I really want to emphasize it.
That's right. It's not the easiest thing to do in the world. It actually takes work to develop this new practice for yourself, because our world, mainstream media, the news, movies, everything gears us towards separation, gears us towards hate and separation, anger, and it's counterintuitive to be this way. And I want to just make sure that everyone heard me when I was saying, when you can visualize somebody in their coffin, for example, this is different from wishing them harmful death. This is learning how to understand what it would be like when they are no longer able to work their path, work their journey, and what that feels like. And it's actually quite sad, because we all come here to work through these things. And as empaths, as special empaths like to close themselves off because they don't necessarily know how to protect themselves from certain energies. Mm-hmm. And the worst thing that we can do is actually close ourselves off. Right. It's to be counterintuitive and to offset what's happening. We actually must face it, but we can face it in a very loving, non-threatening way, just by going within and doing those techniques that I had shared with you earlier, and exactly what Janice has been sharing with you, and what the preface of her show is.
Mm-hmm. There's a book when my son was about 5, and he's 13 now, but when he was 5, that's when I was going through my big spiritual awakening and remembrance. And I got him a book because I got it for him, and it was Neil Donald Walsh's book, Little Soul and the Sun. And I sat down with him to read it, and I was in tears by the end. I was bawling because it just hit this part of me that it was that remembrance. And I went, oh my God. And it was completely about forgiveness. And it just, when you look at it, and another way to look at it, from what you're saying too, Pamela, look at it, if it works for you from a soul perspective. Way before you came here and incarnated, way before any of us were here, okay? And you're a soul, you're a light. And not everything is light. There's no like stuff that we experience on earth where it's all this violence and harm being done, but everything is light. And in the book it shows it's the two souls, and it says, okay, we're going to go back this time, and I want to experience forgiveness. How can I experience forgiveness if there's nothing to forgive? Because in true actuality, reality, there's nothing to forgive. It's all light. Okay, but here on earth, we get all these opportunities to experience all these things. The only way to experience forgiveness is to experience something that gives you the chance to forgive. And so the other soul said, I'll do the horrible thing. Well, it doesn't use those words. I'll do the thing that you have to forgive. You just have to remember that you have to forgive it when it happens. That's the trick, So he literally in the picture, illustration, he covers himself in a dark cloak and walks off. And that's the contract I was talking about. It's like they had made the contract. I'm going to do this awful thing, and then all you have to do is remember to forgive, and you will have done it and move on. Just move on. Don't stick in it. Okay. You did what you came to do from that one piece. So anyway, the book, I love that book. And anyway, it really was a simple and neat way to explain it. And for me, that was the moment where I got it. I said, I get it. And I just cried and cried and cried because I thought back on all the experiences of my life. And all of a sudden I realized a bigger perspective of all of them. And I was able to start one at a time letting go, just letting go of it, and freeing myself more and more and more and more, and of course healing more along the way too. Yeah. So that now when I get a phone call or when I talk to someone who's coming at me, it's like second nature. I can just do it. But I did start from really zero, and I had to learn.
Yeah. We all do. It's adversity and the pain that causes the growth. And empaths and light workers and sensitive people, we experience the most adversity, it seems. We're the ones who are really dragged through the mud when we allow it, because that we are ultimately allowing it. When we're dragged through the mud, so to speak, it really is a blessing, because it's almost like our soul, like you had mentioned earlier, we do have a contract. We do make the decision to come back. We don't remember exactly what we promised or contracted for, but we understand it as we're going through it. And, here it comes again. And when we are in the throes of that, it's actually a badge of honor, because we are not given anything that we really cannot handle here on this plane. It is a mission. We're spiritual warriors, so to speak, because the strength and the faith that's being fortified through these experiences, when we allow it to happen, when we become aware and awaken and remember exactly what's going on, the real thing that's going on, it allows us to fight for the light, I guess. And I don't like to use language, actually, but apparently this is what Spirit wants to talk about today: warriorship and fighting. So when we're going through our battle training, our boot camp, it's because we're needed. It's because there is something greater than us that we are meant to assist with. And that could be small moment to moment, or something really big that's coming down the pike for us. But our strength, our faith, and our belief in ourselves is being fine-tuned, honed in on, and developed through this boot camp that we call Earth, and then what we call our life journey. And so it's actually like a badge of honor. And if we can begin to see that, again, us empaths and light workers and sensitive people, as something to work through and with delight, really, because we know at the end we're going to be rewarded greatly. Every single time, the reward through that turmoil, through that adversity, is always such a wonderful reward and prize. It's freedom. It's true freedom and true liberation.
You see why I wanted Pamela on the show. She's so wonderful. And what I was just being given was because of what you were saying. And I haven't thought about this before, but I'm just being given this. It's like this. If I can put it into words. Kind of going back to what you said when you had that experience at work, and then you forgave, and so quickly she was just removed from your life. You were both freed, from it. It's like these people that keep putting out this negativity and these, for lack of a better word, the stuff that we are working to clear from Earth, these low vibrations. Okay, when they're putting these out, it's like what feeds it is you taking it in and being affected by it negatively. That's what's feeding more and more and more of them doing it more within themselves. If it hits up against you and you don't take it and you actually clear it away, you've not only protected yourself, but you've affected something in that person without knowing it, because they threw it out and it had a different effect. And it was lessened then within them. And then each time it's done and that's happened, it's actually having an effect. This is just what I'm being given right now, so that, like Pamela was saying, we have a strong, important, and I'm always saying purpose and mission. Let's say mission for being here. We've got to clear all this stuff away from this planet and all these people and everything on it. And so the more that you can do through forgiveness, the more light work you are doing to benefit everyone and everything. This is powerful stuff. And I want you to really know that. So when you look and you say, I forgive whomever, that is powerfully affecting everything. So I want to thank you for doing the work, any piece of it that you do, whenever you do it, because it helps me feel better and it helps all of us. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone for listening. And do we have time? I would like to offer up a prayer, if that's okay. Do we have time for that?
Yeah, let's do that as the last thing.
Okay. Actually, how much time do we have? I don't even know.
We have probably 5 minutes.
Okay. To your point about doing the work, and I want you guys that's listening to be kind to yourselves as well, because it is a practice. It's something that you need to build. You've been operating the same way your entire life, and which is all habits that we create from ourselves based on beliefs that we've been given from our primary caretakers and authority figures, etc. And it's just going to take a little bit of time to build this practice in for you to be able to completely let go and completely understand and recognize that whatever somebody else does to trespass against you really isn't about you. It's all about them. And it's their path, and to bless them and to bless the situation as well as yourself a success repeatedly for however often you need to do that. And one of the things that I invite you all to do too is if you have trouble sleeping at night, or if you know that you have a lot of contacts that need to be done throughout the day, 2 things. Number 1 is incorporate lavender oil into your life, and be careful of the type of lavender oil that you purchase. Actually choose it from a reputable source, a company that's tested by a third party. But lavender oil is the oil of communication, and it's very calming. And if you use that in between phone calls, it can act sort of as a protective barrier and to help ground you so that you don't take things personally, and it opens up the channel of communication. And the other thing I invite you all to do is if you have trouble sleeping at night especially, I believe that this is your angels, your guides, your spirit, whatever higher power and what name you apply here, God, etc., trying to tap you on the shoulder to say, hey, we didn't communicate today. Let's talk about what's going on in your life. And if you are finding yourself awake at night often, especially around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I invite you to visualize pouring yourself, your love, your intention back into the people of our planet, back into the planet, and visualize this beautiful, warm, glowing golden light coming from your heart center. Even though the heart chakra is green, I still would like to invite you to do the golden color coming right from your heart, your center, over, around, through, and into the planet Earth, and visualizing it touching every body, including yourself, just for a few moments, and sending the vibe peace and the vibe of forgiveness and the vibe of compassion through that exercise. And you will find yourself instantly connected with the divine.
Okay. Thank you, Pamela.
You're welcome. So may I go ahead into that prayer?
Yes.
Awesome. I invite you all to just kind of settle in and become aware of your breathing. And I ask that we all be surrounded by the white light of protection, individually and collectively. I ask that only the Most High may enter. And I ask that and give thanks that we all operate from our right mind, especially our leaders, judges, teachers, and of course our enemies. I ask that the collective consciousness that is ego, pain, trauma, terror, scarcity, and fear melt away and give way to the collective consciousness that is light, love, peace, forgiveness, and compassion. I ask that all of our egos be swept aside not only in this moment but in every moment. I ask that we operate in, with, and of love, and I ask for the madness to cease. I ask that those that still slumber awaken to rise up and stand in peace. That whatever is to pass to those that are not of their right mind happen swiftly, so that to spare those that are of their right mind any kind of pain. And I ask that the scales tip back in favor of those who are awake and I give thanks to all of our safety. Let us stand together in peace and as one, because all of our lives matter. May we rise up in peace. Amen.
Thank you, Pamela. That is so beautiful, and the powerful reminder of why we are here. All of us being sensitive, feeling the pain that's on this earth, we're here to change that so it doesn't exist anymore. So, Pamela, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. This has been wonderful, bringing so many awarenesses and so many gifts to people. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to touch people's lives. Thanks, Janice, for all the work that you're doing.
Wonderful. And I want to tell everyone real quick, remember, you can find more of these tools, tons of tools to help empaths in my book, Empathic Sensitivity. You can find a website, Empathic Sensitivity online. You can find more about the foundation system. All of this that I've written is tools and information for highly and ultra-sensitive people and empaths. You can find it all on my website, empoweredthriving.com. So until next time, please take the most excellent care of yourself possible and stay empowered. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for listening today. Please join us next week as Janice answers listener questions and provides more inspiration and practical applications for you to live a healthy, productive life as an empath.